Oh, could I settle my first name? Actually, Will, it's been a while, but it's spelled like Karen, but it's actually pronounced Karen.
Karen.
So think car in the garage, Karen.
Karen.
Yeah. Oh, can I settle my first name? Actually, Will, it's been a while, but it's spelled like Karen, but it's actually pronounced Karen.
So are we ready, Chief?
We're ready. Thank you.
Good evening.
Just so everybody knows, we're live on YouTube now.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. This is the Skokie Police Use of Force Review Board. Our virtual meeting on Tuesday, February the 15th, 2022. Due to the surge in COVID-19 cases, this meeting is being held virtually. Members of the public who wish to comment as to an item on the published agenda or to comment during public comments must submit their statement or question in writing to Cindy Pector, Administrative Specialist, and all properly submitted statements or questions will be presented to the board members and made part of the record. Written comments also may be submitted by email to citizenscomments@skokie.org or by mail to the Skokie Police Department, 7300 Niles Center Road, Skokie, Illinois, 60077, or via the village's drop box located by the public entry to Village Hall. Cindy, can you call the roll just for the record, if you're there?
I believe that, just read off the names.
Yes.
I've got, this may not be in any order, but I've got Beth Deems, and forgive me if I mispronounce your name, Chairman Will Evans, Beth Deems,
Present.
Karen Sherman, Casey Deers,
Present.
Alicia
Wartowski, present.
Wartowski. Okay, James Boheim.
Bame, present.
Bame. Dennis Rizzo.
Present.
Abel Figueroa. Is that correct?
Present.
Figueroa. And Judge Bobrick.
How do you do? I'm here.
We have a quorum. Well, again, welcome everyone. This is our first meeting of the Skokie Police Use of Force Review Board. I'm Will Evans, I'm chair. I've been anointed, appointed, drafted to be chair of this esteemed body. I currently have another role that I am chair of the Fire and Police Commission and spend a lot of time with with Chief Baker. And in my prior to that, I was chair of the Human Relations Committee, where I attended and hung out a lot with Karen, very active member, and pleased to see us working together again. I'm sure all of you have had a little pep talk about, from the mayor about what we, I think this initial group is to kind of set the pace and parameters on what are we trying to do. It's an idea that was formed to do this, and our jobs are to make it a reality and really set pace for years off into the future of what this innovative team has to do. I'd like to turn around and start by just maybe everybody introducing themselves and a little bit about themselves. Again, I'm Will Evans. I'm a retired executive. I spent 40 years working for People's Gas, and I retired as president of People's Gas back in 2014. I was pulled off the bench back in 2019, and I became the chairman and CEO of the Illinois Tollway. And I'm actually, this week is my last week there. I'm going to retire again from that esteemed body and just play golf from now on. I'm one of seven, and I have two children. I've lived here in Skokie for 38 years. Whoever wants to go next, please feel free to. Or I can call on people. How about you, Cindy? You know, I know you're an administrator, but you're part of the team since you're here.
I've been with the police department for 3.5 years full-time now. And yes, I am the administrative person. And I grew up in Skokie. I've lived in Skokie, went to school in Skokie. So I'm a longtime Skokie resident as well.
Chairman Evans, I'll go next. I'll be the first guinea pig to introduce myself. I'm Beth Demas. Can everyone hear me? Okay.
Yes.
I am a relative newbie to Skokie. My husband and I moved here in 2019, spring of 2019. I'm a member of the Laurel Park Action Network. We're a group of neighbors who mostly live around Laurel Park who came together in the wake of the George Floyd killing. And our group participated in the task force, the use of force task force, 2 of our members. I lived in Chicago for almost 40 years before moving here with my husband. We lived most recently in Rogers Park. By day, I'm an affordable housing developer. I work for an organization called Alden Foundation. We specialize in developing senior housing. And I'm pleased to be a part of this effort.
Karen?
Hi, I'm Karen Sherman. I'm an attorney and social worker. I've lived in Skokie for about 24 years. We moved here specifically, intentionally, to raise our children here, and it's been great. And I've known Will for some time because I have been a member of the Human Relations Commission for about 15 or 16 years now, I think. So, and I'm so happy to be part of this effort as well.
I'm happy to go. My name is Alicia Ortowski. It's nice to meet each of you. I have lived in Skokie for a little over 12 years. We moved here 6 days before my second child was born, which was not stressful at all. And my partner and I, we have 3 children and live in Skokie. I have had a career that's gone sort of in different places, but it makes sense to me in that I started off in youth service work, especially supporting adolescent girls' development. I was then a legal aid attorney and spent about a decade in Chicago representing children in contested guardianship cases. And then went on to work at Northwestern at the Women's Center, where I did gender equity and racial justice work, and really found a love of being able to do dialogue work across people of working with people across identities. And I am just excited to kind of be stepping up and trying to give back to my community in a way. My kids are getting old enough so that it feels like this is the time to start to dive into service in a different way. So I'm glad to be here.
I'm happy to go next. I'm Casey Deers. I live in the Devonshire area with my wife and soon to be 9-year-old daughter. I am an architectural lighting consultant. We've been in Skokie for 5 years. And when I read about this, it made sense to me, and I thought I'd throw my name in the hat.
Hi, folks. My name is Abel Figueroa. I've actually recently moved to Skokie in August. My day job is actually a project manager for JP Morgan's commercial bank. And then My side hustle slash hopefully future endeavors is a coffee roaster. I started my own coffee company last year, roasting fresh specialty coffee. Before my banking career, I actually worked with Rogers Park in the community council to kind of establish a network for high schoolers, specifically at Sullivan High School, to kind of interact with the police. When I read about this on Facebook, I thought this would be a great way to kind of give back to service. My wife and I specifically moved to Skokie to raise a family, and we are expecting our first child in July. So I'm hoping the work that we do here lays the foundation for years to come for them. So thank you.
I can go next if that's all right. My name is Dennis. With the exception of about a year and a half, I've been in Skokie since 2006. My wife grew up here, so that's how I came to be in Skokie. It's a great village. I am part of the Public Safety Commission, and so I was involved in the use of force review that happened last year, and was asked to be a part of this commission as well. I'm very happy to do that, and I'm excited about the work that can be done here. As far as work, I am in IT for Northwestern University, specifically for the Feinberg School of Medicine.
I guess I'll give it a try. I'm at Bobrick, and I moved to Skokie in 1990. In 1991, I was appointed a judge in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Illinois. And I remained in that position for quite a while. And it was in 2005 that I retired and began to arbitrate and mediate for the JAMS organization. My experience on the bench had me interface quite a bit with police because I handled criminal cases. And I thought that experience would be useful for the board in their mission. As I said, I've lived in Skokie since 1990, and I love Skokie, and I sure want to return all the nice experiences I've had interfacing with people of the Skokie Police Force and Skokie Town Hall and Mayor's Office and everybody else. So I'm pleased to join this auspicious group of people and hope to help everybody out in moving forward.
Good evening. This is Jim Boehm. I've lived in Skokie for 18 years. Prior to that, I lived in Evanston for 16 years. I currently work at University of Illinois, Chicago. Started there in 2001. I was in the Citizens Police Academy with Officer Eric a few years ago. So I went through that. My father was a Chicago police officer for 30 years. So when I saw this was, needless to say, piqued my interest just because of having that background. So I'm looking forward to working with everyone and working with everyone in the village.
Thank you all. I think Officer Barnes, I think we have you left, and then Chief.
Sure. Sorry, Will, didn't mean to cut you off there. Jesse Barnes, been in my 22nd year, Skokie Police Department. Currently the Administrative Services Deputy Chief. Prior to that, worked out of investigations for a while, worked patrol, various other things here. Was on the SWAT team for a while. Excited to be a part of the group. Married, father of two, and looking forward to getting to know you guys. Thank you.
And good evening. I know many of you, but not everybody. I'm Brian Baker. I'm the Chief of Police here in Skokie, and I'm in my 28th year. I'm a father of three and married. Over my tenure, I've held not every job in the department, but most of them. And I found the process of the use of force review extremely enlightening and beneficial and educational. And I'm just as excited to dive into this as I was with what we learned in the last process. So any questions, anytime whatsoever, Jesse and I are here to answer them for you. So thank you all.
I muted myself. Are you going to share the kind of to kick things off the Safety Commission's report? What initiated us this commission being formed?
Sure, I can definitely do that. So as part of the Public Safety Commission review of the police department's use of force policy, it came out with a number of recommendations that was published in this report and presented to the village board and adopted by the village board and then given back to the police department to enact and work on it. So under the heading of response recommendations for transparency and accountability in the Public Safety Commission's report, they recommended the establishment of a community review board that would evaluate the Skokie Police Department use of force statistics and the findings from use of force incidents that resulted in complaints or injury. The purpose of the review board's evaluation is to ascertain if the use of force policy continues to meet the needs of the community or if modifications to the policy are recommended to ensure its continued effectiveness. Karen and Dennis were part of that process as they mentioned just a little while ago, as was I, and they can call me on it if I don't summarize this kind of the proper way. But I believe the intent of this board is to take a look at use of force data from whatever period of time you decide you want to. We have a beginning recommendation, but it can really be whatever you want it to be. And take a look at that use of force data from the uses of force that occur here at our police department and look for any kind of trends or any kind of blips or significant things that cause you concern or maybe cause you to be, celebratory as well. And also take a look at those uses of forces that result in someone complaining to us or someone else that we didn't do it properly, or that resulted in injury, and maybe looking at those a little bit more closer to make sure there isn't anything that concerns you. And then out of that review, if there are things that would concern you, you could raise them in this forum. Jesse and I could try to answer your questions that you may have. And depending on what it is and your level of concern, you can go anywhere from talking about it at this meeting to reporting something all the way back to the mayor. Does that make sense? Did I do that right, Karen and Dennis?
So do we report back to the mayor or to the council itself? Or is this something, is that process laid out, or is that a process that we need to establish?
I believe it is laid out, but it looks like Chief Baker is looking through the documentation, so I'll defer to him rather than relying on my memory.
Yeah.
So the board shall hold meetings. All this was codified in an ordinance, which is what I have in front of me now.
Can you send that out to all of us?
I certainly can. In the ordinance, it says that subsequent to each semi-annual meeting of the board. So under the original concept, the Public Safety Commission thought that the board would need to meet probably twice a year. And that was based on the number of uses of force that the police department historically have had and trying to figure out the workload per meetings. The ordinance allows you to meet as often as you would like to. So you're not stuck with 2 meetings a year. You can meet every month. But subsequent to your meetings, the semi-annual meeting of the board, the chair shall prepare and present a report to the mayor. This report shall contain any and all recommendations or policy ideas directed toward improving the Skokie Police Department's use of force policy. The mayor will then forward the report to the trustees and the chair of the Public Safety Commission. So your report will be directly to the mayor. What we talked about initially for a review of data is before we can actually review data, we thought it would be a good idea because we have different varying levels of education, we have different varying levels of experience, of knowledge with regards to the criminal justice system, et cetera. So we kind of need to get everyone on the same baseline, if you will, of knowledge, which is what we did when we did the use of force review. So the way we thought we would start next month is for me to give a presentation that I gave to the Public Safety Commission at the very first meeting that they started the use of force review, which is what are the federal laws, what are the Illinois laws that are applicable and regulate use of force with regard to police officers and specifically Skokie, and then what is our use of force policy in our department? How does that work? What's it look like? How's it laid out? So you have a thorough understanding of the laws and our policy before you ever start looking at the data, if that makes sense.
Can you also send, that out in advance?
Yes.
Even your presentation, whatever it is you have, I think it would make our meetings more productive. And I'm sure, Karen and Dennis are probably way ahead of us here, but to kind of bring us all up to speed, I know about that much from a conversation. And, my other commission keeps me pretty busy. I think there's a lot of synergy here, but one of Chief Baker knows we've been doing a lot of hiring, and that's what takes up a lot of time every month. We go from one hire and interviews to the next one. So whatever data and things you can get us in advance, I think that'll make us a little bit more efficient.
Yeah, for sure. So I can send out the presentation for next time. We'll do that in advance so you can all look through it. And then the plan is in our April meeting, the police department will present to you the cumulative data from the year 2021 for use of forces in the police department, along with those incidents that force was used that ended in someone complaining to us or ended in a report of an injury. So that would be our April work, would be the initial look at all that data. And we can send that out ahead of time as well.
So what's the definition of use of force?
It's really, that's one of the things we'll cover when we go through our policy next month, but it really is anything that is above and beyond what is normally needed to effect an arrest. It's pretty much word for word the way our policy is written, which means what we normally do to effect an arrest is you're under arrest, turn around, put your hands behind your back, and I put handcuffs on. So if I have to do anything other than that, we write a use of force report. So it could be literally me putting my hands on your arm and just slightly giving pressure on your wrist. That's a use of force. And from there all the way up to the most severe.
Mm-hmm. And it's up to the officer to report that, correct?
Yes.
Can I ask a question? So this was a conversation that I had with the mayor when I was speaking with him in December as well. And if this is going to be addressed next month or in the future, let me know. But I'm curious about the use of statistics, which are gathering sort of en masse incidents and, displaying them in a, however it's displayed. I wonder if the way that is reported would catch, for example, if there's, say, 3% of the use of force has a complaint filed, that might not be a big number. But if, for example, all 3 of them are from the same officer or a similar type of use of force that's concerning or an incident like that, I'm curious if the statistics would catch that, and if we as a body have a way of reviewing that in a more granular sense.
That's a good question. Jesse and I have had some conversations already. Just to give you some idea, out of all of the uses of force from 2021, there's 9 that fall into the category of either an injury or a complaint. So you're not talking about a huge number. So there is a way, I think, for you to look into those in great detail. The question we were kind of talking about was, how best do we do that? Because I can show you a lot of reading. And I'm not sure how much you want to read. So we could share the information ahead of time. And then we talked about maybe giving a briefing on each one, just like a synopsis. But it's really up to you to let us know how you would like to receive and get that information. And I think part of this, process is going to be learning what you think you want to see and what you want to know, and then us going back and modifying what we're giving you. You know what I mean? Because we're going to start by giving you the data we've always collected and the data we gave the Public Safety Commission, but you may find out that you want something else, and we'll have to go back and figure out how to pull it and give it to you. You know what I mean? So I kind of see the data evolving as your work evolves over time.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. That perfectly answers it. I having read the charter, in my mind, the actual purpose of this body is just slightly skewed because only reviewing the data that's being recorded might not catch the actual need. You might miss the forest for the trees. And so, and some of the past incidences that have been in the news might not have been caught by a chart, but could have been caught by individuals reviewing specific incidences. So thank you.
You're welcome.
And Chief, as we learn more, we also can make recommendation on what data should be collected.
100%, yes. And I fully anticipate that will probably happen. And, that will evolve over time.
So when is the department going to body cams?
So right now, we are in the middle of, not in the middle, but we have begun on January 2nd, a body-worn camera pilot program. What that means is we picked a squad, and the squad is a sergeant and a group of officers that are assigned to a shift. So it's a sergeant and 10 officers assigned to the afternoon shift, and 3 detectives are our pilot program. So they are all wearing body-worn cameras every day they work. They have been since January 2nd, and that will go on into the future. And the whole intent of that is to learn from their experiences on how we need to adjust our policy, how we need to train our officers, what we need to do with systems and storage and all those kinds of things, and get all the tweaks worked out. And then once we get all that figured out, my anticipation is, and I believe the village manager will support this, is we'll roll into a full implementation sometime this calendar year, but after May 1st, because May 1st is our next budget year. We have funds proposed in the next budget year for a full implementation.
And the law requires implementation by when?
For us, for our size agency, it would be January of 2024.
Okay.
So we'll be well ahead of when it's mandated.
You know, one just administrative thing to if you could just set up box accounts for us.
Yes.
You know, I for the rest of the commission, in our role as the fire and police commission, we review a lot of paper, and it used to get like carried to us, and we went to box accounts. You know, it's like Dropbox. It's just a virtual space, and that's been pretty effective in getting us data in real time instead of waiting for something. You know, we have to get things, sent them back. We review a lot of resumes, psych exams. It's that stack of paper that Chief Baker brings up. That's like every month, that much paper. But having it in a box account, and the other nice thing is that's a repository for documentation that, you know, that we can share, you know, the ordinance, the charter, all those things where you don't have, what I find, I don't have to go look for them. I know I can go in the box account and the things we need are there.
Yep, we can definitely do that.
Yeah. I think that would be, you know, just starting off, I think that would be a good place. You know, the minutes and everything, our agendas, everything would be in that same place. Anything else, Chief?
I think that's covers all the major topics for, you know, kind of what the thought process was for getting the commission, the board's work underway.
I'd like to open the floor, you know, for anyone have any comments or questions, anything they want to discuss in our last 15 minutes here, 20 minutes.
I have another question. I have a lot of questions. Just for context, is there a history? Has there been complaints against officers for incidents that they did not file a use of force for?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
And I wonder,
I can't think of one either.
okay, I wonder if when you're sending the documents, if you could also send some broad statistics on the police department, just size, number of officers, general statistics to sort of orient us.
Sure.
Those of us that are not familiar at all.
Yeah.
You have a booklet. You have a, what's it, budget book or something? There's a little book that talks about the police.
I have an annual report.
Annual report, yeah.
Yeah. And I would also offer, if any of you are interested at all, in coming here, going on a tour, I can give you an explanation of, you know, the different departments, different parts of the department, what everybody does, et cetera. If you don't have that background and you're interested, just let me know. We can certainly set that up. You know, if you think that'll be helpful. But we can
Highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. You know, the village repurposed the building some years ago and repurposed it and turned it into a great police department. Actually, in my role as my role as ending the end of the week as chair of the tollway, I actually sent our District 15 state police, they patrol the tollway, and we were looking at upgrading their facilities. I sent them to see Skokie. They came to visit Skokie's facility. That's how impressive it is. If you ever have been close to a police force or a police department, it's pretty awesome. And we have a great police force, really do, dedicated staff. But I think that to spend some time, and it's not a 15-minute tour. I would give yourself an hour or so to kind of walk through and see they have a gun range, they have a virtual studio that you can, if they're, and I forgot the guy, if you're there, especially after hours, where they can plug in and they have a scenario where you can walk into shooter scenarios, hostage situations, and you are playing a video game basically, but it's virtual. You're in this room and you are virtually walking through it just to see how our officers are trained. To be a small village, I think you would be impressed how much the village has invested in its police force to keep us safe, to make us a great place to live. And this is I'm gonna piggyback on Casey's question, and is that, there's that, and I asked the question before, this is up to the police to report this, the officer to make it in his report. Do you foresee with your rollout of body cams, will there be a way to discern from the video whether use of force can be reported? You're leaving it up to the officer, but from my point of view, and I'm a citizen that has been stopped, and I may have a different view of use of force than the officer does, because it's, as you said, it's the interaction, and I may not get arrested. The person may not get arrested, but is that still something that's going to be reviewed about use of force? They weren't arrested, but they could have been retained, stopped, maybe even handcuffed. It was a police stop or whatever, and then, okay, now you can go. How does that information get collected?
So, well, there's a lot of different ways that, officers' activities are recorded.
So here, let me give you a real example. And
Yep.
I think Karen has heard this from me. We were on a commission, we were doing Come Together in Skokie. We were also having these talks and these community discussions about, just racial issues. And some years ago, I haven't even told you this, Chief. Tony knows about it, but I don't think I ever told you about this. I'm standing in front of my house, and it's late one night. I had forgotten I had turned off my water hose. I'm watering my grass and taking a shower, and I get out and I realize I can see the fan going back and forth. It probably had been on for 3 or 4 hours. I totally forgot about it. So I throw on a pair of shorts and I run around and I'm pulling my hose in. I'm not standing in front of the house because I have a motion detector that's going to turn my lights on. And I don't have a shirt on or anything. I just got on some flip-flops and a pair of shorts, not underwear, but a real pair of shorts. But I'm kind of stripped down. And I'm pulling in my water hose, and I see a car go down, lights off. And it's an unmarked police car. And I'm watching. So, a little background. I grew up in the city on the west side in a dense, urban, dangerous area where I know how to interact with the police. It's yes, sir, you did. I'm gonna put my arms, I'm gonna show you my hands. I've been stopped by the police. I'm gonna get I know these things is what you have to do as an African-American to survive and make sure I get home safe. So I see him, he's quick walking across the yard. And when he gets in front of the house, the light comes on. Hey, you, stop, don't move, with his hand on his weapon. And I'm bringing that up like, that's use of force to me. Now, there wasn't arrested, nothing happened, but he had me identify myself. He asked me, he said, what are you doing? I'm pulling my hose. You live here? What's the address? I'll never forget it. That's how, because it's shocking. And I told him the address. He said, everything's okay. I said, no, everything's not okay. Well, you're standing over there in those bushes, and now we've disarmed the situation. Now I can go completely ballistic. These are my bushes in front of my house pulling my hose in. And the only reason you've seen a black man standing in front of this house at 11 o'clock at night is the only reason you stopped me. Is that use of force? That's use of force to me. He had his hand on his weapon in front of my house, stopping me. So I don't know, maybe this was the question Casey was coming up with, but it came to my mind is that what data, if we're just leaving it up to the police officers, my job here, even though I hire all the police officers and interact with them every day, I have to be a citizen and make sure we're doing the best job for all the citizens in Skokie. How do we collect that data? Those are the things that, there's someone I know and he's the spouse of an elected official, and he got in an altercation with a police officer. Very similar situation, but not in front of his house, but in a public space. How do we address those things and collect that kind of data, which is often not present? It's not on the report, but how do we, and maybe you don't have an answer, but I think that I feel like to do our job, we got to think about that. We got to think about how do we make sure, because I'm sure that report, that was never a report. He said everything was okay. He didn't pull his weapon. He had his hand on his weapon, and you stand in front of your house, somebody stopping you with their hand on your weapon, that gives you a little, your heart's gonna start beating a little bit, and this isn't this ain't a make-a-believe. I'm not chair of the Fire and Police Commission, but I'm a resident. I've been a resident for a long time. And it's startling that you have to experience that, but I take that experience trying to make the village better at all times. That's why I serve. I've been on commissions. I've been very involved. But I bring that example up in how do we, if I was a citizen and during that time, I could call in and complain. No, I didn't. I think back and I didn't. I think I was just happy that I was walking back into my house, and not a statistic is all I think of in all my interactions that don't get reported.
Yeah. Well, I don't have a real answer for how that gets reported. It's not as a use of force. Current policy is if he pulls that weapon and points it at you, that's a use of force. And that's been determined to be a use of force under the law in the federal case law. So there was a time when we didn't even report when we pointed a weapon at someone. So we've evolved over time, and I would hope that the interaction we would have today with an officer in that same scenario would be way different than what we had back then. We've definitely evolved with time. We've evolved with our training and our expectations to our officers and the way they interact with people. And we've come a long way, but to go back to the question about the, how's that collected? It's not. And it's certainly open for discussion. Now, with the advent of body-worn cameras, the vendor we're using is Axon. They have a software program that we are getting that randomly. So I'm a sergeant on the street. I have 10 officers assigned to me. Whenever I decide to go into this program, it will randomly pull X number of videos from all my officers and I review them. That way it's done randomly. The officers don't feel like they're getting targeted. That will be part of our policy and program. It's part of it now with pilot, but it will extend to everybody once we get them all. So that's a way in the future we'll catch things like that. But it's not foolproof. Everyone that contacts us and complains about anything, it's documented. That's another way. But again, if you don't call and complain, we don't know. So it's not perfect. We'll admit that. and we'll definitely do anything we think can be done to make it better.
I would hope that in that example, if a complaint was filed, even if a use of force wasn't filled out, that we would have a conversation about it.
And it would get counted as a use of force. You know, and I have another example 180 degrees away from that. And this is why, you know, I serve and spend the Fire and Police Commission spends a lot of time hiring candidates, and it is I didn't know it was this much work. I would still be recurring. I didn't know it was this much work, but it really gives me a sense of pride, the officers that we hire. We spend a lot of time, we have a lot of turnover, we go through a lot of candidates, because I have a direct opposite story about one day I'm taking my garbage out, and I go back in the house and I leave my garage is attached. I live downtown Skokie. And I went back in the house to get some more garbage. And it wasn't too long, but the light went out in the garage, and I come out and I see a police car there. The officer saw it, and he had walked to my front door to ring the doorbell because my garage door was open. You know, that's again, he hadn't seen me. He was just doing his job, trying to make the village safe. You know, that's the type of officers we have. You know, I don't remember the person, and it's like it's been almost 30 years ago that this happened. But I agree, Chief, as I interact, and there's a lot of officers know me now because I get around and I talk to people, but even the ones that don't, you know, we have a great police force. And being, you know, I wouldn't say I was a victim, but I use that as an example in the role I have today. And that's kind of my yardstick that of, you know, being profiled, and I see and been in those situations. But when I look today, you know, I'm very proud to be in this role. And that's why, you know, and Chief Baker knows we spend a lot of time interviewing both police and fire for the 5 commissioners. And I do it gladly because I want the village to be, you know, not have those experiences, you know, of that type of officer, you know, who, you know, good or bad. And he's probably a little scared too, but he got an F on that situation. That is clearly an F. Don't remember him. I can't even remember what he looked like because I was in shock. But it is, you know, when I look back, and that was 30 years ago, easily. I just look today in interaction with officers, and we really have a great police force that I'm very proud of. You know, in our job here, you know, I don't feel like this is punitive, what we're trying to do. We're not the city of Chicago. We actually, for some of you may not know, we actually changed the ordinance about a year ago. And so we allow lateral transfers, and we're getting quite a few Chicago police officers, some very good ones too, because we still do a background check, we do psychs, and we spend a lot of time reviewing those, and we reject a lot of candidates for police. We reject a lot. And I think it's core for the village to be a safe place. You got to have a great police force and invest in them. And it's not just money, it's time, and it's the time. And I thank all of you for investing your time and spending time with us tonight, and in the next couple of months, just to try to get our hands around this and providing this great service for the village. Any other questions or comments?
I have one question. Chief Baker, when you're at our next meeting, when you're presenting the use of force policies, I was wondering if you could also give us an overview of the training that the Skokie police get, various types of training.
Absolutely. No, very good ask.
That's just to touch on that. That's also something, if any of you are interested in a tour, you can actually see some of that stuff hands-on. Happy to show it to you, talk through what our new officers go through, what our existing officers go through for quarterly training, weekly training, things of that nature. So those are things you can maybe experience hands-on and get a little better feel for.
Great, thank you.
Other questions or comments? I think
Yeah, something you just said about rejecting a lot of applicants. I would be curious to hear a little bit more about that. What criteria would disqualify a candidate? I think that's relevant.
a lot of it is the psych exam. We also do a lie detector test, and that's kind of the first line of defense where people get rejected. I just have if you lied, you're gone, for whatever matter. So we have openings, but we're just not going to take anyone. It's just not, I would say we have a very high bar. We have a Chicago, I think Bruce was first deputy, maybe, but he's deputy superintendent, and he's lives here in Skokie. He joined the board a couple of years ago. But we got a nice, there's 2 women on the board and myself. So the board is the majority diverse for the board. We have a younger person on the board. So we have a lot of diversity, and we have a long-time board member that's on the board. So we have a great cross-section of experience, and the interviews sometimes, but a lot of times it's the lie detector test. The lie detector test, the psych exam, and then the interview. And having interviewed and hired a lot of people, I think the group of us, I just look at, do I want to put a gun in this guy's hand? I want him representing me, and I think that's why, we have great police officers. We're the firewall of getting police officers. Fire is easier. You got to have something strong in you to run into a fire. That it's totally different. You had to be dedicated. So typically, we don't have a very high rejection rate with fire. When they come and they want to be a firefighter, 99% of them probably make it. They've invested in learning about the fire service. They may be fire somewhere else. I feel a lot of people want to be police officers, and it's a power trip. That's just my opinion, having interviewed a lot of people, that you have to have a certain amount of dedication. You got to be very cool under fire and show that in your experience. Like, what have you done in the past? We asked this question about use of force, and have you used it in your past or whatever, and those are great indicators. So yeah, it's just we're the first line of defense, and I think I would say we get it right most of the time. We've hired some people who this was more than what they wanted to do, went through the whole process, and then they're here for 6 months or a year and they have to go. But by far, I think we've been very, very successful.
And I would just add to that, I would concur with everything Chairman Evans has said. The Board of Fire and Police Commissioners do a great job of hiring. Nothing's on 100%. Everybody's human. I also feel like we do a really good job now and have for a while. If we get any indication whatsoever that we've hired the wrong person, we will take care of that in our field training program and convince them that, or otherwise, just terminate them. That this is not the place for them. Mm-hmm. So we're really, really good about that now. We weren't always that way, but we certainly are now. The
Yeah,
last thing I want to have is someone here for 30 years that
right.
shouldn't be here.
We had an officer, the guy looked really good, came in, and he did something in Chicago that was conduct unbecoming to us. And he submitted his resignation with some coaxing. You know, it's not, there's not a lot of tolerance for behavior that may be tolerated in other departments, and our big sister maybe next door. And we scrutinize the CPD candidates very closely. But by far, we've had some great candidates from CPD. They also, before they come to us, they do a background check. They'll go visit their families and interview other people, their bosses or whatever. There's a lot of, it's like you coming to work for the FBI or the CIA to come work for the Skokie Police Department. They've checked everything about you. We know everything about you. And we invest a lot of time, but you want to invest that up front and not down the road. And that's why we great police officers. You're not just going to come off the street and show up and say, I want to be a cop and we're going to do it. No, it's a very, very high bar that we set.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any questions? So Chief, the other thing, or Cindy, is when we get the box accounts together, hopefully for the next meeting, and to get everybody's contact info. So because this is a public meeting, and typically and I think I talked to someone that the Open Meetings Act rules have been, there's training you had to do with the AG, and that's like behind, but I think you should put those rules out there because we still have to comply with them. You know, and one of those rules that we cannot communicate, like if you get an email, you can't reply all to that email. That would be a violation of Opens Meeting Act. And there's some things like that, and then have everybody's contact information that we can share. Because we can typically talk individually about, you know, an issue, but not that same issue, and everybody's going to talk about it off meeting.
Yeah, we can certainly do that. And I had it on my list to bring up. The Attorney General's Open Meetings Act portal is now working again. So
okay.
The link that you had originally from the mayor will now work, and you can register. You have to register for a new account and then go through the training. But it's not too horrible.
Right.
Just for a simple rule for everyone going forward, if you're not familiar, if 3 of you or more get together, whether it's through email, on the phone, or in person, in any way whatsoever, and you start talking about this business, we're violating the act. So just remember 3 or more.
And if you've had the training, you don't have to take it again. For anybody else that's on a commission or have done it, you don't have to do it again once you take it. It's a one-time deal. But you have to take it. You have to take it. We don't want to come back and something happens and, oh, that person wasn't qualified. So
it is actually not currently loading. I tried it just before the meeting, and I just tried it again.
I did mine today, actually. So I wonder if when I first tried it, it was a little unresponsive, but
okay, I'll try again.
yeah.
I'll
just send it out again.
Yeah, we'll send it out. Maybe
Send
it's
it
a
out
different
again.
link. Maybe the new one's a different link. I'll send it out.
Yeah, maybe so.
Okay. It was a pleasure meeting you all. Hopefully we can get to meeting in person at some point in time just to see everybody face to face. And we just, you know, the police department's got enough space in a big room where we can spread out and meet. And hopefully we can do that, by our April meeting.
So
thank you all.
the intention is that the meetings will be the same Monday every month.
When it's not a holiday. So there's some
It'll be
Monday.
the second Monday.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Nice
Good night.
meeting
Good night.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night,
Good to
everyone.
meet you.